Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, the adaptation practitioners from the region. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this plenary 4 on mainstreaming climate change adaptation in Korea, presents an way forward. This plenary is dedicated for sharing the lessons learned from the Korean experiences, as well as find ways to improve the implementation of the policies and the action plan, or the master plan, should I say. And therefore, we have the panel members also outside from the Korea, so that the additional reflection on the improvement can be shared. Let me just briefly mention that the process that has begun in 2008, and the initial plan has been developed and then later on has been improved and delivered a 5-year master plan called the Climate Change Master Plan for 2011 to 2015. And if we looked into the time frame, we are sitting on the 2013, and that is an experience of the last more than 2 years, and that's going to be shared by the panel member of the Korea. From the national level, it has also moved further, and the adaptation plan at the metropolitan level, which has been completed, and also the effort now are extended to the local government and at the diverse sectoral level. The presentations from the Korean experience will also share their limits and the challenges that they're facing in terms of improvement of the implementation. Now, let me just introduce the presenter. The way we actually designed this, the plenary session 4, we'll have the 2 presentations, and then we'll have the 3 panel speaker who will be reflecting on the master plan and the experiences that the colleagues from the government of Korea is going to be shared with us. And let me just introduce the 2 presenters, Mr. Hong On-so from the Ministry of Environment, Korea, and on my left is Dr. Yong-han Kong, the Korean Adaptation Center for Climate Change in the Korean Environment Institute. And then let me also introduce the panel speaker of my left is Ho Jong Kang from the Yonsei University Green Institute Technology Center for Climate Change. And then on my right, Erik Benedict from Stockholm Environment Institute, and Mr. Byung-Oh Ong from the Institute of the Climate Change Actions. You will find the details of the speaker's brief, and I don't want to take much of the time spending on that, but I'd like to request Mr. Hong Oh-so to make the presentation. Please, floor is for you, sir.
Thanks, moderator. Good afternoon. I'm Hong On-so, a Director of Climate Change Cooperation Division, Ministry of Environment, Korea. I hope all of your stay in Incheon, Korea is comfortable and satisfying. It is my great pleasure and honor to have a presentation on Korea's adaptation policy and strategy at this APAN plenary session today. The contents of my presentation include the background of establishing the Korean climate change adaptation policies, future climate change projection, and Korea's policies to reduce adverse impacts of climate change and maximize its opportunities. First, I'm going to talk about the background of Korea's adaptation policies. As you know well, the global atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration is continuously increasing, about 2 ppm per year. And CO2 is considered as the main cause of global warming. According to IPCC, global temperature has increased by 0.74 degrees Celsius during last century. In Korea, the things have been more dramatic. Temperature has increased by 1.8 degrees for last 100 years. Sea level has risen by 22 centimeters, and seawater temperature 1.2 to 1.6 degrees. These changes have affected a lot on our social, economic, and natural environment. Global societies are now facing many climate change disasters, which caused serious loss and damage. Korea is not an exception. Currently, we have been experiencing many adverse effects of climate change. Patients infected with malaria and scrub typhus have been increasing due to hotter and more humid environment in summer. In addition, there has been lots of loss and damage by heat wave, floods, and landslides. In agricultural sector, crops and livestock are frequently exposed to stress with the change of inhabitation circumstance. The habitats of plants and animals have been migrating northward with the expansion of subtropical zone and the retrenchment of temperate zone. In coastal region, shorelines have begun to retreat with sea level rise, causing damage on coastal facilities. In addition to current adverse impacts, future climate change projections show even more serious influence. Recently, Korea Meteorological Administration, or briefly KMA, prepared new future climate projections as the scenario for global and regional perspective, applicable to Korea, but not confined to Korea. According to the scenarios, there will be temperature rise by 3.2 degrees from 2000 to 2050. In that case, the majority of climate zone, which currently belong to temperate zone, will change into subtropical zone, except some inland areas. You can see. And we are expected to have a shorter winter by a month, and a longer summer season by about 20 days. The rapid increase of extreme heat waves and tropical nights will bring loss and damages in health and properties. Sea level rise, which is expected to be more than 27 centimeters by 2050, will result in the increase of damage from flooding over coastal areas. The precipitation is expected to increase by 15.6% in 2050, which is not only the problem of total amount, but also problems of increasing both, somewhat ironically, flood and drought, because the decrease of rainy days is also expected. As you can see, Korea has been expected to exposed to increasing adverse impacts of climate change, and those trends are expected to continue in the future, which asks us urgent action. In order to respond to these worrisome impacts, the Korean government established a climate change adaptation plan in 2010 and revised and upgraded it in 2012. So I'm going to introduce you the content of the plan. Previously, I'd like to briefly introduce some mitigation policies of Korea. The Korean government has a goal to reduce 30% of greenhouse gas emission by 2020. The Korean government introduced the target management system for energy and greenhouse gases to meet this ambitious goal. We also legislated the emission trade system. Now we are preparing for following actions to actualize the system from the year of 2015. In addition, we have continuously developed the policies for introducing and expanding the supply of new and renewable energy. In transportation sector, we have introduced an incentive system for activating the purchase of electric and hybrid vehicles, an emission mileage program, and a bonus mileage program, which supports low-emission vehicles with subsidy and discourage the purchase of high-emission vehicles by imposing on charge. In housing and commercial sector, we have proceeded policies to boost eco-friendly buildings, which consume less lighting, cooling, and warming energy. A carbon point system, which gives incentives when households reduce the emission of greenhouse gases through energy-saving activities. A green card system, which gives some economic incentives when people use public transportation and purchase greenhouse gas reducing products, and a certification system for carbon labeling and low carbon products. In addition, we also proceed nationwide campaigns to expand low carbon and green lifestyle with a catchphrase of "Me First, Green Start." Now, I'm going to explain about adaptation policies in Korea. The Korean government established the Framework Act on Low Carbon Green Growth to measure climate change from the point of both mitigation and adaptation. According to the act, the Korean government shall establish a national adaptation master plan every 5 years, considering uncertainties of climate change, and the central and local government shall set up mandatory programs to implement the plan. The Korean government established the first national adaptation plan in 2010 and recently revised it, reflecting new climate change scenarios, which explained previously. 13 ministries and government institutions have participated in the plan, and the Ministry of Environment has been coordinating the establishment and implementation of the plan. For this, the Interministerial Committee has been organized, and the Vice Minister of Ministry of Environment has been serving as the chair of this committee. In addition, Korean Adaptation Center for Climate Change, which can be briefly KACCC, which Dr. Kwon is currently in charge of, was established in 2009 to conduct the climate change impact analysis and vulnerability assessment, data management, research for supporting national adaptation policies, and support for local government capacity building. The National Adaptation Plan was made based on impact analysis and vulnerability assessment of each sector, such as health, disaster, agriculture and fishery, ecosystem and forest, and so on. Of course, some impact analysis and vulnerability assessments are yet being proceeded or projected in certain sectors, and even finished ones are expected to be periodically upgraded reflecting new fact-finding and more precise projections. The vision of the adaptation plan is to make climate resilient Korea, and its specific strategies are proceeding the consistent responding system of the police based on the climate change scenarios by KMA, establishing a safety infrastructure to prevent excessive climate-caused loss and damage, and constructing a prompt recovery system, expanding adaptation policies not only for central government, but also for local government and civil communities. And building an international cooperation system are also pursued. In addition, the Korean government tried to improve efficiency of the plan by prioritizing the protection of vulnerable groups and focusing on urgent issues. The Korean government tried to construct consistent adaptation system based on KMA's scenario to avoid overlapping policies and enhance synergy effects among adaptation measures. To support this, KACCC is now constructing an integrated adaptation information system. The government is also constructing a disaster warning system to focus the extreme weather events and related disasters such as landslide and flooding, and to curtail damages. In particular, we try to protect vulnerable people, such as poor and elder people, by providing shelters and caring services. Additionally, we are trying to construct a prompt recovery system to enhance first aid and to provide necessary medical care in the event of climate disaster. To implement the adaptation plan, it is important to help local governments to build their capacity for making more accurate impact analysis and vulnerability assessment in order to reduce damages based on right understanding of climate change and to maximize the use of new opportunities. The Ministry of Environment is providing financial and technical support to local governments to assist the implementation of their adaptation programs. The Korean government plans to support private sector by adopting an evaluation system to assess risks and adaptation capacity of climate change, targeting for public companies and organizations, and to develop and disseminate climate change risk management manuals and guidelines. In addition, the government also tried establishing global partnerships. We plan to share the knowledge for adaptation, such as climate change scenarios, and extend international cooperation related to adaptation measures. In particular, the Korean government tried to support in many aspects to vitalize the function of GCF, which will be located in Songdo, Incheon, Korea. Yesterday, Director Jung, who is in Ministry of Environment, addressed about this. We expect that our adaptation experience can help other countries in the near future. The adaptation options are generally very comprehensive, and most of sectors, including industry, economy, society, ecosystem, and even individual life, can be subject to climate change. However, available resource is limited. Therefore, we have focused on the most urgent issues, which we select are supporting and protecting vulnerable regions and people. In addition, periodic assessment of the policy is necessary because A long-term prediction is likely to enlarge the uncertainties of climate change and has a peril to cause maladaptation problems. Thus, we plan to select detailed projects gradually, according to their necessity and importance. These are the outlines of the Korean government adaptation strategies, and I would like to give a little more information on our policies by sector. In health sector, we are planning to introduce a warming system on extreme climate events and infectious disease, to provide shelters and first aid for the vulnerable, and to construct a monitoring, management, and reporting system for hazardous elements such as harmful insects, microorganisms, and infectious disease. In agricultural sector, we proceed to extend the monitoring system, develop a harvest forecasting system, and improve agricultural facilities. We also plan to develop the climate resilient species and prepare the manuals for minimizing the damages caused by climate change. In related to water resource management, we plan to develop flood, drought forecast, and measuring technologies, and fundamental technologies to reduce the water stress. We also plan to maintain water quality against the burst of algae with higher water temperature. In disaster management sector, we plan to make a disaster warning and prevention system, establish a climate-friendly land use and management system, and improve adaptation capacity of cities and social infrastructure. In ecosystem and forest sector, we try to protect native species and promote forest productivity through